Friends, the minute I saw Lisa's new summer collection, there was no stopping me from clicking checkout. As an Emerald level customer, I had early access to purchase the new Desert Gleam eyeshadow palette as well as 2 of her new Rouge Experience refills. I also picked up Ashes of Roses, thought about also buying Simone, but I was like, Toasted appealed to me more, and because it wasn't a limited edition shade, I just thought I will buy it down the road. And Ashes of Roses has also been on my wish list ever since I purchased Medici, so yeah, that came in the package as well. I also added a sample of her cleanser to my order and was eligible for the gift with purchase tote. I decided to pick the caramel one because it does go with the wardrobe for the season and I think it's a lot of fun. It has like a zippered pouch inside and you know, I love these colors. You can't go wrong with caramel and khaki. We'll get into the swatches for both the palette, the lip refills, as well as the relevant comparisons, and if that sounds like a plan, let's get into these product details. Fresh out of the box, the new Desert Gleam retails for $62. It has a suggested shelf life for 24 months. Thank you. Also made in Italy. I purchased Desert Gleam from Lisa's site and I suspect that Selfridges will eventually have it on theirs, but as a US customer, and if you are one as well, I would suggest you just order from Lisa's site because with the samples and just lower shipping thresholds is a better bet for us. And I would also recommend that you check out Lisa's video explaining her summer collection because she goes into the inspiration behind Desert Gleam and made note that the color story was inspired by late 60s, early 70s safari chic photo shoots that took place in the desert with Studio 54 glam. So we got the sand and the disco, okay, all in one in this palette. We have 6 shadows in all in a variety of finishes, and this palette is not limited edition unlike Betty, so you don't have to worry in rushing to purchase it if you're still thinking about it. The lip refills retail for $30. We have an 18th month suggested shelf life and also made in Italy. The shades are inspired by 90s grunge colors, and when she spoke about Toasted, speaking about how she tried to develop like that perfect beige that looks good on several skin tones depending on the lip liner you pair it with, caught me in the net. I was in there tangled up and didn't want to come out. Rae, she explained, was inspired by her friend who is deeper complected, and when developing the shade, tried it on and she was like, this is my everyday color, and of course had to name it after her. And I cannot wait to try on this chocolatey mauve. My goodness. First, we have Dunes, which is a rich, warm matte shade, beautiful texture, and an easy first step color to blend through the crease or even all over the lid if I wanted that peachy sand color on the eyes. Chrysina, ooh, a luminous, enigmatic duo silver that shifts from warm to cool green silver. And Lisa had explained that this is quite unique because it's not cool or warm as she had explained, and depending on what you pair it with can be used as more of an overlay shade or it can appear more warm or cool depending on the shadow you pair it with. So I'm excited to experiment with this silver. Acacia, her seamless matte in a neutral, rich, deep cocoa brown. Oh my goodness. Diffused lash line, outer corner haze, all over the lid. Cannot wait to get into it. And even these 3, the color story is set, friends. You could just deal with these 3 shades without having to go into the khaki, as we will soon. Prepare yourself. I couldn't wait to see this in person. Ablaze. Her metallic formula, a bronze gold that's as cool as it is warm. And she explained that this shade was inspired by moonlight hitting sand dunes at night. And I think that's perfect because you still have that sandy color present, but with the moonlight coming in, it definitely looks a little more cool. So I think this bronze color is absolutely gorgeous. And now we have Sahara. This is her velvet formula. It's a soft khaki. It has a little bit of yellow in there and you can see how soft the texture is. Lisa's velvet I would equate to Natasha Denona's almost cream to powder formula before she made it into the newer formula that debuted in, I call it the new Lila, but it was the Roxa palette that released last year. This you can build the color, but you see it's not going to be intense as the previous 4, but we'll experiment with both a finger application and a brush one. And lastly, ooh, Firefly, Lisa's metallic formula and an intense bright yellow gold. This is the entire lineup for Desert Gleam. I cannot wait to create looks, and I can definitely recognize the inspiration of safari chic in here. And I saw some of the photos that she was describing, specifically the Verushka shoot on American Vogue. I saw those photos and I saw what Lisa was trying to grab in terms of color edit for Desert Gleam, and I just enjoy the fact that it's 6 shades, versatile in terms of, again, the various textures here, and the fact that she went, yes, neutral, but the Studio 54 sentiment can definitely be felt with the presence of Chrysina and Firefly. My goodness, forget it. I do have the main component. I decided to get it engraved because, oh my gosh, you have to. But we have now the refill component, so let's get cracking into trying the first one. 187 toasted, but we first gotta look at the bullet by itself. Toasted is described to be a true milky tea neutral beige. Oh my goodness. That looks like it's going to be the one. And if you're not familiar with the Rouge Experience lipstick texture, if you haven't purchased a lipstick in your entire life, and I understand this is coming from someone who is not lipstick savvy, where I have not tried each and every lipstick brand out there, especially from the luxury beauty sphere, but I could tell you right now, this is one of the best lipstick formulas out there. There is no smell, there is no taste. It is a true satin, but almost like elevated satin, where it is so lightweight and feather light, but with incredible color payoff that virtually feels like nothing on the lip. So if you were one to be lipstick adverse, where you just didn't like how they felt or it was uncomfortable, by far one of the most comfortable textures you will ever experience. Rouge Experience, hello, the name. You might want to give it a shot. And I know it's expensive, but considering the amount of work Lisa goes into designing not only her components but her developing her shades, it's well worth it. I'll just say that. Rae, listen, I am a sucker for mauve chocolates because those shades are just insanely unique, and I think they bring together both warm and cool beautifully together. So despite how dark the lipstick bullet looks, you can see just how forgiving the shade is. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna wear this every day now. And I'm kicking myself for not grabbing Lili. That is Lisa's nickname that she finally revealed, because I forgot the reasoning was, but because of the reasons I explained why Rouge Experience is just sublime, Lili would have been an easy red to wear for every day. I might get that one soon. But that's why I did grab Ashes of Roses, which is described to be an earthy rose. I suspected this could be my everyday color alongside Rae, but my goodness, that's pretty. I can't wait to get into it. I would love to try these lipsticks, get into a few comparisons, then we'll have the eyeshadow palette demo and a few eyeshadow palette comparisons that I have on standby. So that means it's time for you to come in a little closer. I do have EBB's Posh Bomb in Canal, just so, you know, the lips didn't look dry for the intro. But we're gonna try on Toasted. As suspected, beautiful texture, but as Lisa said, forgiving on several skin tones, and I was excited about that note because beiges for me could be tough to wear, as many beiges end up looking peachy. I am of a neutral undertone, and they might look neutral on photo or on a different swatch, but on me, it just turns too warm for my liking. So to have something that's actually neutral on my lip in the beige category, but not too light, and of course, we have to go in with Lisa's Shape and Sculpt into N. Absolutely perfect. This is great on its own too. I do have bronzer, blush, and highlighter on, and the fluffy brow, but this by itself, not too bad. Next, 181, Rae. My goodness, what did I expect? This is definitely 90s grunge, a shade that I constantly reach for from various brands, but this one, my gosh, it is exactly that. A chocolatey mauve, not too cool, not too warm. This is driving me nuts. And lastly, 183, Ashes of Roses. As I had wanted, just a beautiful grounded rose shade to pull my complexion together. If I didn't want to wear any eye makeup or very little cheek makeup, this just gives me more of a polished look. Without appearing too pink or warm, the rose shade is just perfect. And alongside Medici, this is proving my Rouge Experience collection is building quite nicely, I must say. The first comparison I wanted to make with Toasted is VBB's Posh Lipstick in Spice. Spice, I think, might be a little more yellow leaning, or it's just lighter in general. So you can see how much more color Toasted has compared to Spice. Spice is probably just a lighter beige on me, which I love because it doesn't appear out of place, especially if I pair it with VBB's liner in number 5 or even Lisa's liner in 2N. I do have Gucci's Penny Beige, which I suspect, yes, will appear a lot warmer. Surprisingly though, Penny Beige on me is a beautiful shade and one that I have coveted for a long time, but nice to have these range of beiges. But again, Toasted is special because even though it looks like that on the swatch, it has just a more subdued look on the lip. Now, what I have in mind for a Rae comparison, no other than Lisa's own True Velvet in Sorcery. Velvet Sorcery is described to be a dusky clay rose, and you can see more of that red present in Sorcery versus Rae, which again, because of that mauve undertone, automatically appears a little more cool tone. But Sorcery though will forever be one of my most favorite lip shades in my entire collection. It is just sophisticated, and even with that rosy undertone, I would consider this to be top note rose, undernote still a little mauve. Yes, with that clay sensibility. What can I say? It's just absolutely perfect. But where is my Velvet Affair? For the life of me, I can't find Velvet Affair, but I do have Velvet Decade on standby, which unfortunately broke. Definitely darker in color, but you can see there's more of like a brown undertone overall in the shade. I also have Meet Me in Berlin, which is a different formula. I think this is more of like her kind of lipstick tint hybrid, but reminds me, because this is Rae, right? This reminds me of like a more watercolor version of Rae. So if you love Rae, but you're still afraid to take the dive, I think Meet Me in Berlin is a great alternative, just more of like a veil of color experience, if you will. I forgot to swatch this Suku sheer matte color. I would compare it to Toasted, so I'll still swatch it here. It's a little far, but it's okay. This is in number 14. Yes, it still appears warmer for sure than Toasted. It kind of resembles Gucci's Penny Beige in a way because of that warmer peachy undertone, which yes, I had explained when on me sometimes it could be a little off-putting, but the number 14 in the sheer matte lineup for Suku looks good on me. Okay, it is time. Let's try on some of this eyeshadow. We're gonna start off the looks with Suku's eye primer. I have so many ideas in mind. I'll start layering slowly just so you can get a better idea of how these shades appear solo. We'll first go in with Dunes and check out how this more sandy beige looks on my medium skin tone. And happy to report that it doesn't appear too warm. It actually has a lovely coloring to it. It's not too shady, but it doesn't disappear completely either. So there's definitely some distinction there. If I just wanted to go ultra soft and stick to Dunes, call it a day, we could stay there. I also wanted to quickly show how Acacia applies as a diffuse liner moment. So I'm just pushing that shadow against my lash line, but not taking it too far out, just having it appear more diffused. And I could follow up my finger as well to just blend those edges. And that's Acacia, and I think that's beautiful on its own. See how that gives my lash line significantly more definition compared to when there's no shadow there. And what I wanted to experiment with next is Chrysina, but applying it as more as like an overlay moment. So depending on your fingertip pressure or what brush you decide to use, I want to achieve more of that scatter effect. So I'm just barely brushing against the eyeshadow pan and then taking it center first and spreading it over my lid. So again, it has more of that stardust effect, which I think is so pretty. And what Lisa had done on one of her models, I think you could adjust the intensity of Chryssina, because if you're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot, you don't have to have it appear in that same manner, right? You can control the intensity, and I think that is so pretty scattered across the lid like you see here. Could also be a lovely inner corner moment, right, for that highlight effect. I want to go in with Sahara, but on the entire lid. And people had expressed frustrations with Lisa's Velvet formula because it is so soft, and that cream to powder hybrid type, it won't have the same staying power as like her seamless mattes that are more of a powder base. So if you feel like you need to apply something else, maybe like a primer that ensures better longevity when going in with the Velvet, but I think that's so lovely just as like a light khaki haze effect on the eye. And I do think you get great payoff when going in with your finger in this way, if you decided to cover the entire lid as I'm doing here. But we could also see what will happen if we layer Acacia on top. And I'm taking this small domed brush, concentrating the placement on my outer corner, and just softly whipping the edges outwards to get like that hazy point, as you all know how I love to do. And just being careful here through the crease, because Acacia packs a punch, right? So depending on the brush you decide to use, I'm moving on to my fluffy Sonia brush, where to go. Just cruising along the edges here so they could appear a little more diffused closer to the brow. So that's one example where you can have khaki on the lid, follow up with Acacia so it appears a little more smoky in nature. We can now go in with Ablaze over khaki, maybe in the same manner as we did with Chryssina, and just have like that beautiful scatter effect on the lid. I could also follow up with Ablaze on my inner corner because it's not too dark where it will create a shadow there for highlight. Now Firefly, I would love to see on the lower inner corner for some looks, because that's definitely going to give that flash of gold, especially if you don't feel comfortable wearing it on the entire lid. And just brushing Acacia here on the lower lash line to pull everything together. And now it's time for some lashes. I'll be right back. First demo is complete, and I decided to throw on 2N lip liner as well as Toasted to complete the look. And I think this is one of the more approachable combinations you can rely on if you decide to purchase Desert Gleam, because again, these metallics and luminous shades can be adjusted in regards to their intensity. It doesn't have to be full on metal look on the lids, but you can totally go that route, as Lisa had explained, where she showed one of her models with Firefly all over the lid. And I think that is a beautiful way to go, which maybe we can experiment in the next demo. So if that sounds like a plan, I'll see you back here with bare lids. Firefly all over the lid. I'm using a finger first just to lay down the base of the look. And again, you don't have to go this route, because I understand that Firefly can be quite intense when applied in this way, but I think fully committing to this color is okay. Disco, here we come. You could also create a gradient where you have Firefly on the majority of the lid, but could follow up with Blaze on the inner corner. Why don't we do just that? Not only applying it on the inner corner, but overlapping it with Blaze. So now you have that cooler leaning light bronze shade combining with the yellow gold. I'm also throwing Firefly under the lash line just so that the entire lid is encircled, and just finishing off the edges here by tapping through the crease. So that is Firefly all by itself. I wanted to follow up with Acacia on the lash line, and I'm taking my small angled brush and just tapping it here right across the lash line. And maybe I can take it out a little bit more than how I did for the first eye, creating a bolder lash line look. Maybe not go full out wing, but having it thicker overall. And actually I want to take some Sahara and just throw it through the crease, but to move the Firefly bits around just so they don't appear like they're stuck somewhere, but so they have more of a scattered effect through my crease. Now with Acacia, on the outer as well as inner part of my eye, well maybe, because I know I did this look on the first demo, but I'm going in Acacia first. And I have to say, not a bad blend considering the fact that I'm just plopping this straight on the primer. If you wanted to have a little more blend security, you most certainly can go in with Dune first, just so that it could carry the gradient a bit smoother, but I'll go in with Dunes afterwards like I'm doing now. I wipe the brush and now I'm just whipping it along the edges of Acacia just so that it could, there it is, have a little bit of a more seamless gradient. Taking my smaller pencil dome brush and placing Acacia on the inner part of my eye. Yes, we're going there. And crossing the bridge, definitely going in with a blaze right on the center. So we have the heaviest serving right smack in the middle, but I'm taking the finger tap over Acacia so it doesn't look stuck there like it's crammed between the two mats, or the one mat I should say, but more like resting there. And now Acacia here on the outer part of the lash line, because as I demonstrated with Viseart's Midsommar, how I placed a dark color in the inner part of my eye, probably not a great idea, only because I don't want it to appear so dark there. And instead, I'll follow up with, let me get the right brush. I'll follow up with Chrysina on the inner part of the lower lash line. I think that's a good move. So we have a bit of brightening there. I could also follow up with the same color on the inner corner, but why not instead, let's go in with a blaze on the inner corner. Just a nice serving of that yellow gold right there, overlapping Acacia, just softly tending to the inner part of my arc here, right? Yes, shooting star effect, go. Oh, that's great. I like that. And now, Lisa's liner again in 2N, followed up with Rae. Lashes time, and I'll be right back. And here is demo number 2, throwing on Rae to bring everything together. We went a little smokier on the second eye, using Acacia on the outer and inner lid, and experimented with Firefly all over the lid, having that the main showcase shade. And interestingly enough, Firefly all over the lid, despite its strong yellow undertone, especially when paired with Sahara, kind of has more of an antique yellow gold look to it. And I like how we have Acacia on, you know, because you're doing this with me, of course, along the lash line to give it a little bit of anchoring, just so that there's better intensity and just contrast between my lash line and the gold. But my goodness, this is an incredible palette, and I know it's not going to be for everyone, but I am a sucker for these sandier, just deserty tones, and knowing Lisa's inspiration behind this collection just pulled me in, and that's how I am in general. My favorite palette, when I connect with the inspo behind it, you just can't keep me away. That's how I feel about Midnight Sun from Pat McGrath Labs, Mothership 6, how I feel about a lot of Natasha Denona palettes, specifically Metropolis with the Industrial Age and the Art Deco era. All those color stories speak to me, and with that said, I wanted to present a few comparisons, and I have my notes here because I think it interesting when speaking about palettes with similar shades, but looking at the overall color story for each is a little bit of a different vibe. And I wanted to start with Yucca from Natasha Denona. I'll place them side by side here. Now, immediately upon seeing the colors, you will say, yes, these are the same. You are correct. I'm sure I can definitely recreate the looks you just saw in action with Yucca. I would say in general that Lisa's palette is definitely more desert chic. It's a little more soft, buildable, approachable, if I might add, even with Chrysina and Firefly, even though those are bold for Lisa. But if you are a user of Natasha Denona, you know that Natasha can get crazy with her metallics, right, and her finishes. So you already are familiar with that experience. I would say Yucca for me is like jungle. We are in the lush, just embrace of a tropical situation, and that is present here with the more teal leaning greens, although with Camu Camu and Citrine, those are more of the khaki leaning shades. Valley, Ixia, and Tipu, that you have like the brown moments, especially with Fushi, that more of like that muted tangerine, and of course with the presence of Malaysian, and these different metallics here that have more of like a antique gold sensibility about it, whereas you have the yellow gold, the cool bronze, and the more silver from Chrysina. So this is like a more edited version, in my opinion, than Yucca, but I can definitely see more soft desert versus more editorial lush in the jungle from Yucca. And why not? I'm happy to show Metropolis next to Desert Gleam, and you can see that Metropolis is more bold, far more extensive. You have 28 shades compared to the 6 found in Desert Gleam, and again, this is more wearable in my opinion. You can definitely argue this to be wearable, but for someone who is not used to having 28 shades at their disposal at once, it can feel quite overwhelming. I am accustomed to this type of a palette format, so I could immediately kind of pull the more neutral leaning looks from this 28 pan offering. I can see how the Desert Gleam palette is just more appealing because it does the work for you. You don't have to think as much, and the just edited down version of this color story I think is just more accessible in my opinion. Now we had to bring out the classic Colored Rain Safari Rain, and compared to Desert Gleam, far more bold. Okay, this is giving you color payoff like you've never seen, in terms of you just get that one jungle green, that one, I would say more olive, the gold, the copper, this like taupey silver, and the dead on gold. Remember this one? Remember Colored Rain metallics? Everybody, okay, this one is still kicking, and I think more suitable, especially if you're medium to deeper complected. These mattes are far more bold. There's not a softer color for you here, so you might have to dip out if you're comfortable with just like this more aggressive offering of coloring, which can be a good thing depending on where you are on the skin tone spectrum or just on the makeup technique spectrum, right? This is a fantastic palette. I never decluttered it because I immediately knew that this was one of, if not, except for Queen of Hearts. Queen of Hearts is one of my still favorite palettes of all time, also from Colored Rain. I remember when Safari Rain first hit the scene, how it just blew everyone away, and I still think it's a fantastic palette. Now, of course, I had to mention Melt Gemini. I can't put these up together because my poor little goals here is crushed, but this is giving you more of a grungier, just kind of romantic story. You could say this is like the 90s version of Lisa's lip refills that she released with Desert Gleam, because these are more mustard leaning with the browns, these dirtier olive shades. The metallics are not as good as what's found in Lisa's palette, and that's a critique that many have held for Melt for a long time before they kind of changed their metallic formula with later palettes. The metallics found in Gemini were so-so. They're more like subtle metallic, like a barely there shimmer, where you're getting full-on shine from these. So that is the main difference, and I think Gemini is just grungier in general, even though you could argue that Acacia and Sahara are grungy for Lisa, not as much as was found in Gemini. And again, I remember when that palette dropped, everyone flooded to it. It sold out so quickly and took forever to restock. Next to Charlotte Tilbury's Beautifying Eye Trends in Emerald Effect, this to me is Wizard of Oz Emerald City because of the inclusion of that more mint, and even though you could argue this could be like a Desert Gleam shade or that could be a Desert Gleam shade along with the more bronzier tones in here, not quite the same as like Safari Chic or even Jungle Chic from Yucca. In my opinion, this is a little more like, I don't know, like we're in Fantasyland we're in the desert with Desert Gleam. But Charlotte does have the Rebel Luxury palette. This is one of her older quads. They're tiny, but I think this has more of like a desert sensibility versus emerald effect, because these colors are just more grounded. You can see that this one here is olive, but it's like an antique olive. It has that dirty olive feel about it. And with the gold is more of like a champagne gold. So it's not like a straight up yellow gold. I guess you could argue that it might be. Firefly thing has a little more of that antique feel to it. And there's a presence of a little more champagne to the gold. So if you're wondering if in your Charlotte Tilbury quad collection, Rebel, I think, could be an alternative to Desert Gleam. Desert Gleam definitely has more punch, especially with Firefly, Chrysina, and even Ablaze in here. This is going to be a little more straightforward, dare I say a little more monochromatic than Desert Gleam. But listen, if that's what you want or prefer, then you already have it in Rebel. And lastly, this is before Dior changed their Quint formula. I have this in 579 Jungle, and definitely I think, well, you know, I gotta say, this reminds me of the new Guerlain Majestic Feathers collection quad, the Emerald something. I was so upset when I found out while watching Lexi's video, and you could check it out. I'll make sure to link it down below. The expiration shelf life for Guerlain's $85 palette is 6 months. And I considered buying that emerald one, but not with that shelf life, friends. My gosh. But I thought these were quite similar. Jungle, of course, doesn't have that strong yellow gold found in Desert Gleam, but it has this dark forest green matte. It has the brown on the center, this more antique looking metallic. Again, I don't know what happened to the formula, but the Dior Quints, the ones that I have, are fantastic. I think they are consistent. I have not purchased the newer quad, so I can't speak to the actual differences between the mattes and the satins and the metallics, but I kept this one. This was a good one. And that is it, family. I am thrilled with my purchase. I cannot wait to use more of Desert Gleam, but I have to say I am equally as or even more excited for the new Rouge Experience lip refill shades. They are just impeccably developed. Toasted Rae, I'm gonna wear the heck out of this shade, and now I'm kicking myself for not purchasing Lili, but you know, finding out that after you buy the Rouge Experience case, the refills go on discount when you buy the case, but unfortunately they're not eligible for that same discount if you just buy the refills solo. I kind of wish I knew that, because I would have just thrown in more refills and got the discount even with the higher total cost than just paying $30 for each going forward. But you know what are you gonna do? They're worth it. It's fine. I'm not complaining. Just a little bit though. The next one's on my radar, Lili, as I mentioned. Definitely would love to get Simone, because that's more of like a warm caramel brown, and will be interested to see how it compares to Toasted. And the Bohemian Cherry shade sold out. I was just too slow on that. Will love to get that eventually, and looking forward to see what eyeshadow palette color stories Lisa comes up with for the end of year. Let me know, family, if you also picked up Desert Gleam or maybe just a few of her new lipstick Rouge Experience refills. If you made it this far, make sure you like this video by clicking the thumbs up. It helps me immensely in letting the algorithm know to recommend more videos to you and other beauty enthusiasts such as yourself. And consider subscribing, click that notification bell for more uploads going forward. And if you want to check out the new Viseart Midsummer Lumiere Attendu palette, you could click that video here. I'll make sure to see you there down in the comments for this video, and on here again next time.